Hey everyone, today I want to talk about a little bit of something that's happening in my life personally. Not really, not like a personal detail or anything, just something happening where I live locally. Where I live locally now, I used to live in a bigger city, right, when I went to college. I'm from originally a smaller town, so I moved back to, a smaller town where it's more quiet. That's the way I prefer to do things. Living in the city was great and everything, right? It was really cool to be a part of the action and be able to walk to everywhere and do a lot of fun things. But I still go to the city every now and then. I mean, I go pretty much almost go there for work every day, but it's really easy to get to the main city where I'm from. But just stop rambling. Something that's going on in the small town where I live now is there was just an agreement to build, a pretty big, data center complex in the middle of some really, I guess like not like beautiful land, but really like really nice looking, like calm, relaxing land where I live. Now, I'm not trying to be like political or anything, right? And I love technology. Obviously, that's the whole reason I do this channel, right? I'm into Linux, computers, cybersecurity, servers, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, right? Basically, I'm not against technology, but there's been a recent development where I live, and they're proposing, building out like a huge data center complex, and that kind of it really bummed me out recently. One of the main reasons being is I moved up here because, when living in a city, it's usually a little bit more expensive, and it was, right. I basically live with my girlfriend now, and half of the rent here, because we each split it, right? Half of what I pay here is equivalent to what I paid fully in Milwaukee's, and I have way more space here. And it's way nicer amenities and, like structure and all that kind of stuff, right? So it is really upsetting because, right when I moved out of the city, I moved somewhere where it's more quieter. It's gonna be, more relaxing and not have, that up higher like cost of things, right? And I think, one of the big things when data centers, come is, it's going to bring a lot of, people coming in to do the construction and people coming in to work at the facility, because I don't know if there's going to be offices there, if it's just going to be data center techs. That might be a different story, but I have a feeling, there could be offices and whatnot. So it's going to bring, a lot more people, and, renters and all that kind of stuff are going to jack up the prices because they know people from, bigger cities around are coming, probably people from California, people from Chicago, New York, all those big ones are going to come here and, get things kicked off from like a, from like a shareholder point of view, right? So I'm pretty bummed out about that. But I know as well, right? One of the biggest things is a lot of people are worried about the water, like I guess the water supply, not like the supply literally, but the mainly, data centers can take a lot of water to cool things, especially if they're running, nowadays it's a lot of AI and data centers, right? And those things are powerful, like very, very powerful. So traditional fans sometimes aren't enough, so they do liquid cooling, or, there's water that helps, cool other systems, right? There's different HVAC techniques. So one other big concern of mine is not just the water supply, but them potentially, I guess not hurting people, but kind of sucking up that power supply, like that water supply, compared to the rest of the residents, because feeling that if a multi-billion-dollar data center goes in, they'll get some sort of priority. And that kind of leads me to my next point. I'm a little worried about electricity. There is a local power plant here, where it's just at a convenient location, right? It's where it is, and the electric prices here are pretty, standard, right? Nothing, not like really cheap, not really expensive, in the middle, which is fine, but that's another worry, is that, where people are thinking that the data center is going to have a huge like priority, and all the customers are going to have to pay way out of pocket, more than what they should for their electricity when, the data center, comes to be. But the biggest thing for me is that, I really, I didn't mind living in the city, and I moved away to come back to, what I know best and where I'm comfortable. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not against having data centers and lots of other things too. Technology is the backbone of the humanity today, I guess you could say, in a way. But for where we live here, and there's a lot of controversy, not a controversy, but pretty much every, a lot of people voted no to this, and I don't get why, we would need a data center here of all places. I get it's probably prime location, all that kind of stuff, but it's just not something I can get behind myself, even though being a technical person, right? It's just something that I don't see as needed, and why ruin such a great, beautiful area, and have to fill it up with, AI machines generating like stupid pictures, or NVIDIA, millions of NVIDIA GPUs and all that kind of stuff. But that was just something I want to get off my chest. I don't want to talk about where the data center is because I don't want to reveal freaking where I live. I mean, if you look it up, you'll probably figure out close enough. But like I said before, it's not something I'm against. But like, I'm not against technology, right? But in this case, it's just I don't see why it's needed. I don't see why it went through. But I'm not a political person. I don't like to get political. I just like to kind of be chill and talk. But if you guys were in my situation, what would you do? Would you just shut up and move on about your day, or would you care? Would be interested to see below. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.